Are you not able to find that drone sound on the didgeridoo? Well, luckily for you, you have found this video because I'm going to go over several of the reasons that might be holding you back from making that drone sound on the didgeridoo. So maybe you're sounding like this. When you want to be sounding like this. So I'm going to talk about some of the major reasons, and then we're going to go into some troubleshooting. So reason number one is that you haven't figured out that buzz yet. Now, buzzing is a very important part of making the sound of a didgeridoo. It's actually pivotal. Most people, it's not really a natural thing that you do in normal day-to-day conversation. Hi, how are you? It's not something we do. So it's really understandable if you're new to the didgeridoo or playing a brass instrument that that's just not very comfortable for you. And often when someone is new to it, they try to buzz with their entire lips, which is not the right approach. Now, I want you to listen and look at the difference. If I buzz with just the center of my lips, you can see that my corners have pulled in, the corners of my mouth, and that only the center of my lips are vibrating. And you can also really see the difference and hear the difference when I try and use my entire lips to make that buzzing sound. So this is what it sounds like if you are buzzing just with the center of your lips. And now if I move it to the outer, this is what it sounds like. Kind of sounds like an elephant. So if you're sounding kind of like an elephant, then that's a sign that you need to adjust your embouchure. Now, an embouchure is just, what I mean by that is just the shape of your mouth and your lips and all of that working together. So one thing that a lot of brass players do is they do something called the pencil exercise. And what the intent of the pencil exercise is to get you focused on pulling the corners of your lips in and using the center of your lips to make that sound. And so this exercise strengthens the corners of your lips and helps to loosen the center of your lips. So if you were to get a pencil, and for you, you kids, this is something that people used to use when they were writing stuff. If you put it on your teeth gently, you're not biting down, you're just gently resting it in your teeth, and then I'm going to use my lips to pull in the corners of my mouth, and then I'm going to straighten out that pencil while it's resting on my teeth, and I'm still not using my teeth to bite it into place. Okay, so that's using quite a bit of the corners of my lips to strengthen that hold. And now, once I've got it in this position, I'm going to blow over the pencil. Imagine you're trying to wrap the pencil in an envelope of air, just like a cylinder of air that you're going to blow over this pencil. So you shouldn't have air going this way or this way. It should be in a tight conduit over that pencil. Now, if you feel like your corners of your lips are starting to strain, it's time to back off. This is actually a very sensitive apparatus, believe it or not. Trumpet players and tuba players and trombone players, this is something they have to be very careful about. And you do too. Even though it's the didgeridoo, you have to be very careful to not overstrain your lips. So just do that to a point where you can feel, okay, there's some muscle strengthening, and then back off, and then come back to it and try it for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and work your way up to being able to do that for a minute. So that's an exercise you can use to work on the buzz. Now, that's not the end. If you are not able to figure this out yet, then there are lots of resources for the trombone, and I would recommend looking at the trombone buzzing exercises, as those are it's a very similar process, and although it won't be one-to-one, won't be perfect, it's going to help you figure out how to strengthen that part of your mouth to get that nice buzz sound. So one thing that you may be experiencing is if you're playing that as you play that you are able to have a drone, but as you play, you're not able to sustain it, your drone gives out. So one thing that can be causing that is applying too much pressure to your lips. So you can make a sound, but you may find that after 20 or 30 seconds or even a minute or longer that you can't continue on playing because your lips are getting exhausted. You may be experiencing that. And if you listen carefully, listen to as I'm playing without very much pressure and when I apply more pressure. What's happening is that I'm not relying on the muscles of my face to make that buzz, and instead I'm relying on the pressure from the didgeridoo to form that embouchure. And that's gonna make you run into trouble. You're gonna exhaust quickly and tire quickly. And it's better to work on, getting your lips and your face to have the muscles to be able to sustain playing, and rather than relying on pressure. So if you hear this kind of sound, there's a sign that you're applying too much pressure from the didgeridoo to your face. And one other important thing, when you're playing, you want to make sure that the corners of your lips are pulled in such a way to be, have tension, and the center of your lips to be loose. But if you are feeling cramps and any kind of like pain in that area, then you might be applying too much pressure. That's time to loosen up. Try the horse breathing out sound, and that will help you loosen up. I like to use the sound ew to kind of get those lips into place where the corners of the mouth have some tension but not too much. Ew. Coming to the didgeridoo, it's kind of hard to know how hard you need to buzz, so I'll show you an example of buzzing too high. Now, there are sounds with the didgeridoo that you can make up there, such as what's called the toot. I didn't make up the name, that's just what it's called. But that's not where the main drone of the didgeridoo is found. So that's too high. Let's try too low. You can make drone sounds that low in the didgeridoo, but that's not really where the main sound is found. Let's try something in the middle. So I'm going to go from very low to too high. The didgeridoo is a non-judgmental instrument. All of those sounds can work and be wonderful, but the sound that you may be looking for the drone is in the middle. Right around there. One thing I forgot to mention is that if you are trying to form your embouchure, to make sure and not do this. Notice I'm pulling the corners of my lips back as I should, but if I'm pulling too back, I'm also stretching the middle of my lips, which is causing an awkward smile. And if I play, it's gonna work, but what it's gonna do is it stretches out the skin of your face, and so as you apply the pressure of the didge, you're gonna wear out faster. So make sure to keep your lips more forward and not pulling your entire lips back in what's called the smile embouchure. There's a few exercises that once you kind of are able to make a sound, it's important to take it to the next level so that you can have awesome didgeridoo playing. One of these exercises is to simply find your drone and then play for as long as possible. Notice when I played that long, I'm not using circular breathing, I'm just using the drone to play as long as possible. This is an excellent exercise for many reasons. One, you can't be breathing all the time as you're playing the didgeridoo. You kind of need to be able to condition your body to be able to have that motion of pushing out air slowly for a long period of time and then breathing it in rapidly. And so that, practicing the drone will help you do that, as well as being able to improve the sound of your drone. Like the drone is the meat and potatoes, or the strawberry and ice cream, whatever you want, of your sound, and you're kind of going to be coming back to that sound all the time. So if you're able to make a clean drone sound, and even better if you can do it without any wavering or any kind of fluttering of the sound, that's going to strengthen your drone and make your sound a lot more tight. Another thing that you can practice with this exercise is to play as quietly as possible, but still make a solid drone sound. Notice that I had some wavering. If you can eliminate that wavering and still play quietly, that's going to improve your breath control, which is pivotal to making a lot of sound on the didgeridoo because it's all about the breath. Let's talk about troubleshooting. Before I jump into troubleshooting, I need to explain a concept called back pressure. Now, when I heard the term back pressure, I thought people were talking about like, oh, my back, it hurts. But back pressure is talking about this concept of when you're blowing air down this cylinder, which is the didgeridoo, there is resistance. And that's what back pressure really is. It's just resistance. If I get a soda straw and try and blow air as fast as I can through the straw, let's see how long it takes. That was like less than 10 seconds. Now let's just go to this bigger diameter straw and see how fast I can blow the air out. That was like almost, about a second worth of time. The difference between these two is that the cylinder has a smaller diameter, obviously, but in terms of back pressure, this has higher back pressure because it has more resistance, because the tube is smaller. So if the didgeridoo is wider, then that's going to have less back pressure, similar to this straw. So it's an important concept to understand, because if the back pressure isn't ideal for didgeridoo playing, then you are going to have a harder time playing. So if you are having trouble finding a drone, it might have to do with back pressure. And let's talk about a couple things that can impact back pressure. If your drone is still coming up with this forced sound, it could be that you might have an obstruction in your didgeridoo. So it's time to look down the barrel and see if you can see any problems. If this is a didge you've never been able to get to sound good, you might notice that there might be some obstructions that are causing the back pressure to be too high. There might be too much resistance and you're not able to get a good sound. So what you can do is try blowing through a PVC pipe that's about the same diameter as your didgeridoo and seeing if you can get it to make a sound, and that might tell you whether there's some kind of, the design of the didgeridoo is flawed in some way that is, or just making it more difficult to play. If you're still getting this forced sound, just try and relax and try it over and over again. And eventually you'll get it. Another problem that you might be having is that you may be able to find your drone, but you can only play for a few seconds. Now, what might be happening here is that, I don't mean to insult anyone, but your buzz might be too fat. What I mean by too fat is that you might be pushing too much air through your buzz. If I'm trying to get all the air out while still buzzing, it might sound like this. And this is not going to be helpful behavior for your sound, because you are pushing too much air and it doesn't sound as good, but also you're going to lose that drone too quickly. The perfect thing is to get the buzz with as little air as possible. I'm going to show you an analogy that will help us understand what I mean. So if I pluck this string, it's going to hold that tone for several seconds. And now if I pluck it really hard, it's going to be louder at first, but honestly, it's not going to resonate for much more time than if I had plucked the string less hard. It's the same with your buzz. The goal is to buzz with as little air as possible. And once you're able to do that, you're going to be able to sustain your drone for longer. So if you're only able to sustain your drone for a few seconds, try that exercise I showed previously where you hold the drone for as long as possible and try changing the volume and make sure to keep a steady tone. That'll allow you to, it gets you used to holding that breath and pushing it out slowly and budgeting your air so that you can play the drone longer. Another reason, though, that you might not be able to hold the drone very long is that you might not have enough back pressure. It's time to look at the didgeridoo as maybe perhaps responsible for that. So it is possible for the didgeridoo to be too long or too short. Too short is going to have less back pressure, not enough, and too long might have too much back pressure. My didgeridoo is about 4¼ feet long. Anything past 5 feet is going to be more difficult to play. And also, like if your didgeridoo is less than 3½ feet, it might also have not enough back pressure, which makes it difficult to play. You're not going to be able to sustain the drone for as long because you don't have that resistance. So around 3½ to 4 feet minimum, around maximum of 5 feet. Now, if you are an advanced didgeridoo player, this doesn't apply because you're able to figure this out. Another problem that you might have is the mouthpiece. Your mouthpiece might be too wide. Remember, with the two straws, the wider straw had less back pressure and the thinner straw had more back pressure. So if your mouthpiece on your didgeridoo is too wide, you might not have enough back pressure, and it's difficult to form a drone when you're not able to, when your air is escaping too quickly. And similarly, if your mouthpiece is too small, there's a lot of reasons why a too small mouthpiece might prevent you from playing. Mine is probably on the small end of a mouthpiece. It's about 25 millimeters, and kind of the max is around 40 millimeters, where past that, it's difficult for some people to be able to play. The back pressure is just too low and not enough resistance to be able to form that drone. Another issue that might be troubling you if you are not able to make a buzz, make a drone on the didgeridoo, is that your mouthpiece might be misshapen. Now, I'm not playing with any kind of mouthpiece. I'm just using the didgeridoo itself because it's sized perfectly for me. But if you have a beeswax mouthpiece or other sort of mouthpiece and it's misshapen, you might be experiencing where air is escaping part of the mouthpiece. And so try what I've noticed, actually, even for this one, since the wood is not perfectly round, I found that if I rotate the didgeridoo, I can find an ideal spot just right about here, and that has it seals better around my lips, and I'm able to play. So similarly, you might have to experiment with your didge and try rotating it. You might try reforming your mouthpiece if it's a beeswax mouthpiece to make it form better against your lips. Lastly, if everything else looks right, the didgeridoo is the right length, the mouthpiece is the right size, and everything's good, but you are still having a problem where it's difficult to play, if air is escaping too quickly, you might have a damaged didgeridoo. Now, what does that mean? If you have cracks along the bore of the didgeridoo, air might be escaping, and so again, going back to the straw explanation, if you were to poke holes in this straw, it would allow more air to release more quickly, and so the back pressure would be reduced. Similarly, if you are playing the didgeridoo and there's air escaping along the didgeridoo, you're going to lose back pressure, making it more difficult to play, and you're not going to have as full a drone sound. So by this point, you may have been able to find your drone, but if you want to learn how to play the didgeridoo from start to finish, even with a brief introduction to circular breathing, make sure and check out this video where I cover those concepts. I also am going to be talking about many more instruments on this channel, so if you're interested in music and in instruments in general, make sure and subscribe. Thanks for watching.